Hello everybody, welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe if you haven't already and drop a like. In today's video, I have no idea how this is going to perform, but just throwing stuff out here on this channel to see. So I wanted to talk about my favorite comedian, my personal goat in the comedian conversation, Bill Burr. I have been somebody who has listened to stand-up for a very, very long time, and unfortunately, a lot of the guys who I listened to as a kid for one reason or another, whether it be sex crimes or just terrible, terrible opinions that they've decided to let be the encapsulation of all of their comedy, even though they used to be one of the funniest people in the world. I'm talking about Dave Chappelle. Across the board, it's hard to enjoy stand-up comedy as a very left-leaning person. Leftist is the term you could use to describe me. There are multiple different subsections of leftism. I don't know specifically what groups I fall into, but I do know that I am far left of a Democrat. And for the most part, stand-up comedians have shifted rightward over the years, and I don't think they have actually historically been that. A lot of comedians like to talk about speaking truth to power being the thing that they do, but the reality is almost none of them speak truth to power, and now they want to focus more on the people who very much do not have that power. Joe Rogan will go on his podcast and talk shit about a blue-haired feminist and then talk about how Elon Musk is going to save all of us. The power exists in the hands of Elon Musk, not the blue-haired feminist, believe it or not. Now, Bill Burr has managed to run counter to that. While over the years I've seen many comedians that I enjoy either be exposed as pieces of shit or just outwardly be proudly advertising that they're pieces of shit. One way or the other, we always arrive to a point where it's like, man, I can't really enjoy this guy's comedy anymore. Another example would be like Tom Segura, who is someone who I thought was funny for a while, and then I found out the context of his upbringing, and all of his jokes about him thinking poor people were animals really wasn't a joke, just kind of how he actually felt about it. But Bill Burr routinely speaks up for the interests of regular people, even though when I saw him live, he was in a fucking giant basketball arena, like 15,000 seats, and he still manages to be humble and reasonable. And I have found that his discussion about just everything and the current state of America is almost always spot on. I'm not going to sit here and act like he hasn't had a spotty take here or there. Definitely has some misogynistic takes under his belt over the years. But for the most part, especially in recent years, he only gets better and better and better. Now, recently, he said, here, I'll just read the quote out for you. "There is so much fucking money in this country, and there's so much work being done. If you work a full fucking week, you should be able to pay your fucking rent. You shouldn't have to go to get another fucking job and still be struggling. It's bad for the country. Because these kids don't see their parents. They're not getting the upbringing that they need. These fucking billionaires, they need to be put down like fucking rabid dogs. They're rabid with fucking greed, and they're going out and dividing everybody. The amount of people struggling out there because of these fucking billionaires, and they got us all arguing liberal and conservative. We got to stop doing that. I'm so tired of hearing about people going to bed worried about what's going to happen next week." All of that is so good. Those are all fucking bars. And it's not as though Bill hasn't expressed this anti-billionaire sentiment that I am very happy with, very pro. Years ago, he was on Conan's podcast and he talked about the CEO of Nestle who wanted to own the world's water supply. And he goes, that guy should be hunted down and shot. The assessment that these guys are rabid, greedy dogs who are just dividing everybody and keeping a truly prosperous country from existing, it's the truth. These guys hoard such a significant amount of the wealth. I was actually listening back, because I'm egotistical, to my Stephen A. Smith video where I talked about him running for office and some stuff he said good about trans people, and I was like, less than 1% of the population isn't a problem. Except it is. It's just not that. Less than 1% of the population. It is the like 6 or 7 of the richest people in the world who own like half of the world's wealth. That is unacceptable. There is no world where that should exist. I don't care if they worked for it. And I am just so happy that Bill Burr has gone in this direction that he has, because he's a 56-year-old white man from Boston. He's bald. All right. There was a lot of discussion in the replies of the Stephen A. Smith video, or there's really just one main comment that pointed it out. But, I give Republican vibes sometimes, especially if you get me with the wrong haircut. I saw a video from me like a couple months ago where it was shaved on the side but flat on the top. I was like, you look like a fucking cop, bro. But, there's been a discussion about like the left's Joe Rogan. A lot of people suggesting Hassan Piker be that. The idea of a left Joe Rogan is a little bit silly, but I do understand the sentiment of the right wing being so overly represented in independent media. But if there is a left's Joe Rogan, it's Bill Burr. Now, I don't think Bill Burr defines himself as a leftist. I don't think Bill Burr has read Marx. I don't think that's really his perspective outright. But he does come from this place that I appreciate, which is not being uncritical of capitalism inherently, not treating capitalism as though it is the default human state of being. Because capitalism has only existed for 400-ish years, and the system before it was feudalism, which is arguably the same thing, just with different branding. At least we get little treats now. That makes it better. At least you're not eating like hay and water for dinner. But either way, it's a system that has many, many, many flaws, and we are at the late stage aspect of it lately, which is why inflation has been so bad. It's why homelessness is increasing, and it's not going to be fixed until either the money and power is taken from these billionaires by government sanctions, or if they get put down like rabid fucking dogs. Another guy that a lot of people actually compare Bill to is George Carlin. George Carlin is... I love George Carlin in what he has to say. I think Bill Burr is much funnier. George Carlin sometimes just skews on the line of like, he's not really being that funny right now. He's just ranting about the state of the world, which is all great. I enjoy it. I've listened to every George Carlin special 5 times over, and much of the stuff that he has said aged super, super, super well. And I also don't think he would define himself, or would have defined himself, RIP, as a leftist, but the views that he expresses, the way that he talks about these things, is a very leftist angle on things. You can call it common sense, but that is, to me, it is common sense. It is common sense that if 7 people own half of the world's wealth, that's a problem. That seems like common sense to me. But a lot of people are so capitalism pilled and so in their head about how capitalism should be, or how we should be under capitalism, it's just the natural way to be, that they can't even conceive of something outside of it. But George Carlin and Bill Burr look beyond the surface and actually call out what are very obvious problems to me, but unfortunately people are too focused on DEI and woke and whatever other bullshit they want to use to say that the little guy is your actual problem. But immigrants, gay people, trans people, they're not your problem. These guys are your problem. These billionaires are your problem. And they're going to keep being your problem until someone puts them down like rabid dogs. Or again, we could just take their money away. They don't have to die. Yeah, that's it. I don't know how this is going to be received, but whatever. Bye.